we'll have to wait and see what the precise details are. Naturally, in the middle of a negotiation, these matters are extremely sensitive because everybody is compromising to some degree, and therefore to give the negotiations the best chance of succeeding, it's best to be discreet about them. I can tell you that the Cabinet will be briefed at 12:45 this afternoon as to how far these negotiations have gone, and that's obviously an important part of the process because collective responsibility requires that, and we will see more details emerge over the next few days.
Okay, I'll have to sort of wait and see for some of them. I know you're not exactly telling me that anything is wrong at the same time. I can't help thinking that the plan sounds a little bit similar to the customs partnership put forward by Theresa May last year. Now, that, of course, was a plan that you described at the time as completely cretinous, impractical, bureaucratic, and a betrayal of common sense. So have you changed your mind?
Well, I don't know whether you're right or wrong, so we'll have to find out in a day or two whether I will have to eat my words or not. Time will tell.
So you were thinking that you might have to eat your words then? So what's changed?
I don't know, but there's a line from Churchill saying he'd often had to eat his own words and he'd found it to be a very nourishing diet. And that is something that happens in politics. But it is ultimately a question of trust about the direction in which we are going. To go back to what we were discussing before we were interrupted by the gremlins, that I trust Boris Johnson to ensure that the relationship the UK has with the European Union is one where we are not a vassal state. And that is the point that we are leading towards in all these discussions, and I'm very keen that we should succeed in getting to.
You say you trust Boris Johnson. Is it just because you've got a bit of a better job this time?
No, certainly not. I've trusted Boris Johnson long before he asked me to be part of the government he formed. So, no, that's an irrelevance.
I just want to ask a question that I did actually ask last time, but as you say, the gremlins slightly got in the way. You've been writing this morning talking about the potential need for compromise. What compromises are you prepared to make?
Yes, I'm sorry you didn't get that answer. What I said then was that we've already made compromises, that if you look at the House of Lords report from 2017, we don't owe the EU any money if we leave without a deal. So the 39 billion is not owed under international UK or EU law. And that's a pretty big compromise, to be willing to give £39 billion of taxpayers' money to the European Union to secure a deal. So there are already many compromises that people have been willing to make, people like me, people like the Prime Minister, in order to ensure a smooth exit with a decent deal.
So you're effectively saying that the rest of the withdrawal agreement is something that you might be able to swallow?
Well, I think the key is, at the end of this process, are we in control of our law? If we are in control of our law, then we will have left the European Union properly. The problem with the previous deal was that under the backstop, we potentially were never going to be in control of our law, and therefore we would have remained the vassal state. So that's my key arguments, why people can trust the Prime Minister. We will not be a vassal state at the end of this process. We will have left cleanly. We will be in control of our laws, and that's crucial because that is a genuine Brexit rather than Brexit in name only.
Any deal, of course, has got to get past Parliament, and one body of people in Parliament who may be asked to make some pretty big compromises are the DUP. Their Westminster leader, Nigel Dodd, said yesterday that Northern Ireland has to remain fully part of the customs union and that a double customs solution like the one we've been hearing about cannot work. Are the DUP actually on board with this?
Well, you'll have to ask the DUP what their position is, but I am a member of the Conservative and Unionist Party. The United Kingdom is of great importance to Conservatives, and that obviously includes Northern Ireland as an integral part of it. And the Prime Minister has made himself Minister for the Union and is deeply personally committed to ensuring that the Union is robust and prospers. And I don't believe the Prime Minister would do anything that would undermine the integrity of the United Kingdom.
We know, of course, how strongly you feel about this particular subject because you've told us before. In March this year, you said, "I'm strongly influenced and guided by the DUP's concerns about the union. My only condition is the position of the DUP. I won't abandon the DUP because I think they are the guardians of the union." So if the DUP cannot back any deal that Boris Johnson brings back, will you then resign and vote against it?
Well, I think this is extremely premature, that we don't know the details of the deal, we don't know the DUP's position, and we don't know how it will be received in the country at large. So we've got to see how the DUP react to things when we know them as fact rather than as speculation. But the United Kingdom is of great importance to Conservatives, and the Prime Minister has made it clear that the United Kingdom will remain a single customs territory and that Northern Ireland will remain within the UK customs union. He's been absolutely explicit about that.
But it's fair to say that the DUP's position is one of extreme importance to you.
The DUP's position is of importance to the British nation because the Good Friday Belfast Agreement requires the principle of consent to any change to the constitutional position of Northern Ireland from both communities. The DUP is an important representative of the unionist community, and if you are to make a change in Northern Ireland's constitutional position in any way, it would require the consent of both communities. So it's not whether it's important to me or not, it's important to the whole nation.
We're running out of time, to be frank, and if we are to hit that October the 31st deadline, absolutely everything has got to go right. Could you countenance a short delay or extension if it meant getting Brexit over the line?
Well, if we get the deal and we have a vote possibly next Saturday and that is agreed, getting it through in legislation won't be that problematic. Bear in mind, we could deal with the abdication of a king emperor within 24 hours. We can therefore deal with leaving the European Empire within 12 days.
But would a few extra days be a problem, in theory?
The Prime Minister has been absolutely clear we are leaving on the 31st of October. This is of great importance.
So no extension under any circumstances?
Well, I mean, you've heard what the Prime Minister has said. He is not going to Europe to ask for an extension. He's going to say, shall we do this deal or shall we leave without a deal, and to see where that goes. That endless extensions are not doing us any good. They're not solving the problem. And we saw, I mean, you may have thought my reference to 1936 was a bit antiquated, but the Ben Brackett's Surrender Bill Act got through in a few days. Parliament can legislate quickly when it needs to, and the big decision will be the meaningful vote.
I hear you saying the surrender bill there. There has been a lot of criticism, hasn't there, about some of the loaded language that's been used in the debate. And I know that you have, personally had, abuse at yourself and your family. Don't you think we need to be a bit more careful with our language than this?
I think the argument about the surrender bill is completely bogus, actually. That using terms that encapsulate the purpose of an act is completely normal and standard. And politicians all do this. So the socialists called the community charge the poll tax because they wanted to get a political point across. And it's very important to differentiate that from the type of abuse that people get on social media of threats of violence and of deep hatred. And I know this particularly happens to lady broadcasters. So I know this is a serious problem, but it's entirely different from using political terms in relation to what other politicians are doing. The John McDonnell's line about Esther McVey being lynched is a quite disgraceful thing to have said, and is something that should be stopped, simply shouldn't happen. But so calling something a surrender bill is just the normal use of language.